You're listening to the Qur'an Tafsir, Understanding the Word of Allah, a podcast dedicated to explaining the Qur'an, presented by various reliable scholars. This podcast is powered by Seekers Hub Global. Visit seekershub.org for online courses, our Q&A service with reliable scholars, and engaging media.
الصلاة والسلام والتسليم على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيبنا محمد ذي القدر العظيم وعلى آله وأصحابه والتابعين لهم بإحسان وهدى إلى يوم الدين. اللهم فقهنا في الدين وعلمنا التأويل وألهمنا رشدنا يا رب العالمين. Alhamdulillah, it is a tremendous blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a blessing that we should not overlook the tremendousness of, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has facilitated for us to be in a house of His houses, seeking to remind ourselves of His blessings subhanahu wa ta'ala. What we're going to do this morning, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, is to share some reflections on one of the briefest surahs in the Qur'an, Surat al Asr. And it is related from Imam al-Shafi'i, may Allah have mercy upon him, one of the great foundational imams of Islam, that he said that were people to reflect on Surat al Asr, it would be sufficient for them. Were people to reflect on Surat al Asr, it would be sufficient for them. But at the same time, the beloved Messenger, Imam al-Shafi'i, in another statement, he said, however, most people fail to do so. However, most people fail to do so. And the reason they fail to do so is simply because of the nature of the human being. As Surat al Asr itself indicates, that it is from the nature of the human being that we are hasty, that we don't reflect, that we don't consider sufficiently. So Surat al Asr is simply 3 verses. Simply 3 verses. But it provides a complete framework with respect to the human being. How do we transform our reality from one of loss to one of gain in this life? And it's a very dramatic surah as well, in the way it is framed. It opens with a divine oath. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears, Wal Asr. And one of the things that is frequent in the Qur'an are these oaths, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears by something. We have Wal Asr, by the waning day. We have Wal Shams, Wal Duha, Wal Layl. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears by these phenomena. But what is an oath? The basis for us as servants of Allah, we are only allowed to swear by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We cannot say in the Arab. In English, we hardly swear in the same way for emphasis. Right? But you know, I can't say washamsi. Like, I swear by the sun, you will come and have lunch with me. I don't have a right to do that. It will not be permitted. And especially if we don't know Arabic, we have to pause and consider, what does it mean for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be swearing by something? When you swear an oath, if someone says, I swear by God, what is the purpose of it? What's the purpose of swearing? There's emphasis of a point that you're making. But what you swear by is being given significance as well. Okay? Which is why, if you want to make a major point, you can only make it by Allah. You can only say, by Allah, such and such. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who's the Lord of all creation, He has the right, and He alone has the right to swear by other than Himself. So the point of the oath is to emphasize what comes after. But it also highlights the significance of what is being sworn by. And we have to consider, why is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swearing by this particular matter? And when it comes to Allah's oaths, the other consideration is who is swearing. Right? Who is it that is swearing? It is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when we say Wal Asr, we have to, or any of the surahs where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears, we have to keep in mind that it is as if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that I, the Lord of the worlds, swear by this tremendous creation of mine that is Al Asr, that is the waning day, or that is time itself, that you must consider such and such. Right? So there's a lot that is implicit in these oaths. That I, the Lord of the worlds, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right, do swear and emphasize in the meaning that will come by this particular matter. And what the Lord of the world swears by, all of creation is His. But we should reflect. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks us, أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ? Do they not reflect upon the Qur'an? That why is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swearing by the particular phenomenon? In this case, Al Asr. And the meaning that comes afterwards is being emphasized. All of Qur'an is guidance, but one of the areas where one needs to pay particular attention to is when Allah is swearing by something, that the message that comes after is being particularly emphasized. Pay particular attention to this. It is all guidance, but pay particular attention to this. So some people almost cringe. There's someone who complained once that the Imam in our masjid keeps reciting Surat al Asr. Anything wrong with it? Because at the short surahs, people often take them for granted. That this is such a short surah. But many a scholar wrote entire books just on Surat al Asr. So Allah swears by Al Asr. What is meant by Al Asr? The ulama of tafsir mentioned that there are 4 primary meanings for Al Asr. And there are interrelationships between them. Because Asr can either refer to a particular time in the day itself, which we all know, Asr time, which is the end of the day. And that time indicates a meaning, because Asr time is now the end of the day. What's left after that is for the sun to set, for the day to be over. So Allah swears by, one possibility is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swearing by the end of the day. Why? Because it has many indications related to the meaning coming. That when the sun has risen, it looks like there's all this opportunity. The day in our lives is full of opportunity. But that day comes to an end. And in the old days, once the sun set, your day is over. And some people only start waking up when, there's a lot of bad habits due to artificial lighting and digital technology, right? to start waking up sometime after, like 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon. But the end of the day, it conveys the end of our opportunity, of what we were striving for. It also, of course, the end of the day is a time of rest. That after the toil of the day, at the end of the day, this is now the time when one's done from one's worldly efforts. Now one thinks about how one will rest, what one will eat for dinner, and how one will rest for the rest of the day, maybe time with the family, etc. This is why one of the expressions for that end of the day was called al-rawha. At the time now to be returning home and resting. But that's a time of reflection. Even the fact that the sun's going towards setting, if one looks towards it, thinks about that itself gives one time for reflection. So it's a time for reflection. Another interpretation of Wal Asr refers to time itself. That Allah swears by time itself. Because the nature of time is loss. Right? Because every moment of time has many aspects to it. That with as one of the Salaf radiallahu ta'ala said, that your life is but breaths. With each breath you take, some of your life has gone. That Allah swearing by time itself. That for most people, if they think about it, time is opportunity lost. That you may have missed out on what you should be doing. And if you did what you should be doing, did you do it as you should be, in the way that you should be doing it? And very often the answer is no. So that relates to the loss. Another of the interpretations mentioned by the ulama of tafsir of time is that the time being referred to is the time of the life of the Prophet ﷺ. Wal Asr. Because the L in the Arabic language can be categorical, lil-jins, Asr itself, but it can also be referential. And this is one of the things with the Arabic language that even often Arabs don't appreciate sufficiently. And especially in classical Arabic, modern Arabic has lost a lot of this kind of subtlety. The ulama say that generally the al-ta'rif, the definite L, like al-asr, that generally the default in it is that it is referential, not categorical. One simple example that a lot of people get confused by. This was one brother came up to me once and he said, is it correct that it is sunnah to recite the closing verses of Surat al at night? I said, yes. The Prophet encouraged it. And he said, whoever recites, he said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, whoever recites Surat al Asr, kafata, they will be sufficient for them. They will be sufficient for them. He said, that's a problem. I said, why is it a problem that Surat al Asr is the sunnah? And so that the closing verse of Surat al-Baqarah are sunnah. He said, I can't recite it. No, it's a recommended sunnah. If someone doesn't do it, they've missed one of the sunnahs of the Prophet ﷺ. But it's not something sinful or haram. And there's so many sunnahs. The sunnah is vast beyond our ability. It's a problem. I said, why is it a problem? He said, because I can't make dua against my neighbors. Because at the end, what does it say in Surah Al-Baqarah? وَانْصُرْنَا عَلَى أَنْتَ مَوْلَانَا فَانْصُرْنَا عَلَى الْقَوْمِ الْكَافِرِينَ. He said, but my neighbors are kafirin. That you are our master, so grant us victory over the al-qawm al-kafirin. Now the al in al-kafirin, what kind of al is it? It's not grant us victory over all those who disbelieve. What victory do you want over your neighbor? It's referential. Whom, and it's sometimes very common sense even. Which disbelievers are you asking for victory over? Who do you ask for victory over? Yeah. Oh, you're at victory over someone who's at enmity with you. Okay. It's not your next door neighbor. Okay. And that's important in general to keep in mind, because many things would not make sense unless you know what the context, which disbelievers is it talking about. And very often, if this is being translated, it needs to be translated in a manner that considers this meaning. Because for a lot of people, it's almost common sense. If we say, and grant us victory over those who disbelieve, we can say, well, it's obvious, meaning those who are opposed to us. But sometimes we have to make that explicit, because there are people who understand these things in upside down ways in our times, sadly. So the al is very often referential. So many said that in Al Asr, it's referential, referring to the lifetime of the Prophet ﷺ. Why? Because in all of human time, in all of created time, the most blessed time was, and will remain, that time of the Prophet ﷺ. So Allah swearing by that time. And this is the interpretation of many of the early Muslims. So Allah swears by this. But that time was brief. That time was brief. And its brevity was a shock even to the Sahaba. When the Prophet ﷺ passed on, even Sayyidina Umar was like, it was a shock to them. Because it's such a, for humanity, such a blessed time. So Allah swears by that. Wal Asr. But then, what is being emphasized? Inna al-insana lafi khusr. Normally, in Arabic language, there's just two types of sentences. There's a nominal sentence and a verbal sentence. A verbal sentence is one that has a fi'l and a fa'il. And another sentence that's made up of nouns, nominal sentence, where the verbal sentence indicates activity, whereas a nominal sentence, because it's made up of nouns, conveys a sense of constancy. Normally you say, al-insanu khasir, for example. Humanity is in loss. But that basic sentence, a whole number of things are done to highlight the meaning in Inna al-insana lafi khusr. First, the inna is for emphasis. Truly, humanity. ... Inna. Now this is hard to convey in English, and English is not a language of rhetorical emphasis in the way that the Arabic language is. If you say truly, especially in modern English, people think, which century did you land from? Right? But we have to keep in mind that this Inna al-insana, truly man, it doesn't say La, inni khasirun. It says this lam, which adds emphasis, truly man, is really, and doesn't say at a loss, khasir. La fi khusr. They are truly in loss. And the way Imam Fakhruddin al-Razi and others explain, it's as if, here the Al in Al-Insan is categorical. That all of humanity, right, truly, all of humanity, the Al here is categorical, is indeed immersed in utter loss. As if you gather all of humanity and they're in loss. Like loss is a state. It's like loss is an ocean. You gather all humanity and they're immersed in utter loss. That they're drowning completely. لَفِي خُسْرٍ. And that itself, and they say if one just reads that, it should really make one have a sense of urgency. Because if this is the state of humanity, then I'm one of them. We are one of them. I said just that statement should cause one to pause and consider and have a sense of urgency. I don't want to be in loss. Like if you're drowning, you don't say, well, let's see how things work out. No, you're drowning. It's not something, well, let's see what we can do. Right? Like if you're immersed in loss, that's worse than drowning. Like you would have a sense of urgency. But there's both personal urgency conveyed because you are in loss, I am in loss, but also the nature of the human being is that we are necessarily needy social beings. We need one another. Not one of us could have built this masjid. Not just financially. Even if someone knows about construction, can you put together the lights? Can you do this? Can you do that? Could you have stitched your own clothes just for yourself? We are needy human beings. And we need one another. But if humanity is in loss, that includes your parents, includes your neighbors, includes your friends. So it also entails, well, firstly, how do I save myself? It also entails, how do I save others? Because you care. These are your fellow human beings, beginning with, our circles of concern. Yourself, your family, your friends, your community, the ummah, humanity. So they said that in reality, all of the message of Surat al Asr is contained there. In terms of the urgency. Truly, humanity is immersed in utter loss. And this is why, when it comes to the short surahs of the Qur'an, don't be hasty in reciting them. Don't be hasty in reciting them. We take these surahs for granted. Even if we think we know a little bit, we take them for granted. In Toronto, I was teaching a tafsir class, and I'd prepare well in advance for 4 mid-sized tafsirs. I'd get the core meaning, and then I'd go into the larger works of tafsir. Now one day was a hectic Wednesday at the hub in Toronto. And I'd done the pre-preparation for the tafsir class. So in the afternoon, I look in the larger tafsirs. It was Surat al And I think I knew what Surat al meant. And I looked it up in the 4 core tafsirs that I'd begin with, and then I'd look in the larger tafsirs. And I was juggling, it was like 4:30 p.m., the class was 7:30, so I was going to go and have lunch in my office. I was going to multitask. And I still remember the indigestion I got from reading the large books of tafsir. Because it's one of them. It's one of the most curiously named scholars of Islam. His name is As-Samin al-Halabi. He has a book called Ad-Durr al-Masul. One of the great linguists of tafsir. Just Surat al-Kawthar. the shortest surah in the Qur'an. There are 22 points of rhetorical eloquence, of balagha, in these 3 verses. So when I read that, I was like, because sometimes, they come up with very obtruse points that, how are these relevant? I went through this, whoa, and I'm trying to bite down on a burger at the same time. I must have not chewed it properly, I'm so blown away. So in the class, I actually mentioned 21 of the 22. One required some explanation of balagha, of the science of rhetoric, which I didn't. I think maybe the burger influenced my decision not to include it. But it's amazing. And we all know so much of the Qur'an, even if we know a few surahs, that we could spend our lifetime reflecting on those. And this is one of the things that I'd like to encourage myself, first and foremost, and each of us, that when's the last time we refreshed our understanding of Surat al-Fatiha? When's the last time we refreshed our understanding of Surat al-Ikhlas, of the Mu'awwidhatayn, the Surat al-Falaq and Surat al-Nas? Pretty much all of us should probably know a lot more Qur'an than that. The greatest ayah in the Qur'an, Ayat al-Kursi. When's the last time we... And don't take it for granted, just because even if we know we think we know Arabic, that we really get what is the implication of what's being said. So that's something, as we gear up for the month of Ramadan, we should all strive to do. Okay? So when Allah tells us, إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ, this should instill within us a complete sense of urgency. How do I save myself from drowning? How can I save others from drowning? But also entailed by this, Imam al-Razi and others said, that your concern to save others from drowning has to begin with what? By saving yourself from drowning. Because you can't help another unless you begin by helping yourself. It's a basic principle of if you're a lifeguard, you have to secure yourself first before you can assist another. But then there's an exception made. Illa. But this exception is only understood if you're clear of what the case is. Okay? Because an exception, illa, except, they say you can only understand that which is exceptional if you appreciate what it's being made an exception from. So truly, man is, the nature of the human being is that they are indeed in utter loss. And then there's an exception. There's an exception. But that which is exceptional requires attention. Illa said, no one can enter except, and if conditions are made, you have to be careful that you fulfill those conditions, otherwise you can't enter. Okay? And entering, you say, well, I didn't enter. But said, everyone's going to drown unless, whoa. So you pay attention to these qualities. You pay attention to these qualities. And we won't go into a lot of detail on these qualities, but إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, except those who have truly believed. Of course, we don't engage in tafsir ourselves just like that, but the ulama say that one of the things to pay attention on, and it helps one reflect, that if something is expressed, because the same thing very often in the Arabic language you can express it through a verbal statement or a nominal sentence. You can say, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ, except those who are believing. Okay? Because that has a sense of constancy, of continuity, that you have to keep believing. And there's meanings indicated by that. But if the same thing is expressed through a nominal sentence, through a jumla ismiyya, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. It conveys a different sense, but إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, in what kind of word is this? What kind of fair? It's not a trick question. Amanu is a fair madi. It's the past. Why doesn't it say إِلَّا الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ, which is a present or continual sense? Because that which is said in the past tense has a meaning of tahqiq, of being realized. Except those who have truly believed. Except those who have truly believed. Whereas yu'minun has a sense of the active sense, who are, and sometimes that's this is one of the things to pay attention to, right? That how are things being expressed, and how do we get understanding of that? Any of us in our homes, we should have at least one reliable tafsir of the Qur'an. Because you read the Qur'an, pay attention to something, and you make a little note. Why is it expressed in this way? And you should have reliable tafsir. You go back and check on it. And in the English language, there's several such works now. One of them that we would recommend is Ma'arif al-Qur'an. Ma'arif al-Qur'an, which is ably translated in 8 or 9 volumes. But it's very accessible. And in the Arabic language, there's works that are for the educated non-specialist, like Safat al-Tafasir of al-Sabuni, for example. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, except those who have truly believed. Right? Belief is something that has happened to them, and it is complete. Use it in the past tense. Except those who have truly believed. Which is not simply that you are a believer. It is say إِلَّا الْمُؤْمِنِ. Because it could be, in nominal sentence, إِلَّا الْمُؤْمِنِ, except the believer. No. The issue isn't whether you are a believer or not. It's not whether you believe. But rather, except those who have truly believed. تحقيقا. That's why it's put in the past tense. Meaning that faith is something that must be, it's not just something that is affirmed, but you need to realize its realities. You need to realize its realities to save yourself from loss. And a simple example of that is that all of us, if we ask, can anyone benefit or harm you except Allah? No believer would say, yeah, lots of people can benefit me or harm me except Allah. Nobody would say that. No. Any Muslim say, yeah, only Allah benefits or harms. We will say that. But is that meaning in our heart when we go to a job interview? Or when you're going back home, you forgot about your wedding anniversary and you're showing up 2 hours late. Right? The fear of life is intense in most of our hearts. Right? That's why some of us, our beards have gone gray. So, we affirm these meanings of faith. But are we realized in them that no one benefits or harms except Allah? No one gives or takes but Allah. That la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, no ability nor power except by Allah. So this is a call to be realized in the realities of faith. Except those who have truly believed, who have realization of faith. How do we do this? Well, one of the keys to this is the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The purpose of remembrance is not just simply to work what we can call our ajrometer, right? Like a register of rewards. That, you say La ilaha illallah once, you get this much reward, 10 times you get this much, 100 times you get that much. And that is a benefit. Sayyidina Ali ibn Abi Talib referred to this as ibadat al-tujjar, the worship of the traders. Like you strike a deal with Allah. Oh Allah, I'll say it 100 times, you better give me, I want this from you. And Allah is, if someone dealt with you like that, you'd think, God, that's being cheap. Right? I'd make a better deal for you. But Allah is merciful, He allows us to do that. But rather, remembrance is about the one remembered. It's about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The greatest benefit of the act of remembrance, when we say, La ilaha illallah, is that these are statements of Iman. They renew our faith in our consciousness. When we say, Alhamdulillah, sometimes we just say Alhamdulillah meaning, oh thank you. Or sometimes you say Alhamdulillah, cool. You could actually just synonymize it. Oh, the food's arrived. Alhamdulillah. Great. But Alhamdulillah, all praise, or praise itself, is deserved by and belongs only to Allah. Because He is the praiseworthy. These are statements of tremendous meaning. So, these basic dhikrs, each of them contains all the meanings of Iman. We say, La ilaha illallah, that there's none free of need of any other, whom all are in absolute need of except Allah. Alhamdulillah, that all praise and praiseworthiness is deserved by and belongs to only Allah. When we say Subhanallah, that exalted is Allah beyond all limits. Possessed is Allah of all perfections. It's an amazing statement. It's not just Subhanallah, like, oh wow. That we take these high meanings of dhikr and we reduce them to just, one is great, the other is wow. Allahu Akbar. And many of us have never considered what Allahu Akbar means. One is that there is no meaning there of it being comparative. Because the sighat al-tafdeel in the Arabic language, the comparative, it does not mean literally Allah is greater in the literal sense. Because the tafdeel indicates that literally that A is great and B is great, but A is greater than B. But if you believe that about Allahu Akbar, you're saying that there's a point of similitude between Allah and creation, except that Allah is just bigger and better. And that's completely erroneous. Because Allahu Akbar means Allah is the absolutely great. There is none great but Allah. And it is not comparative, it is superlative. That Allah is absolutely great. And of course, and then reflection would make you realize, why is He the absolutely great? So this is one of the practical ways of realizing our faith, through remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with reflection, to renew the meanings of faith. وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, and who do righteous deeds. Again, something I just wanted to highlight. وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, and who do, and sometimes Uncle English is very useful English. The way uncles speak. Some uncles would translate this, and do the righteous deeds. And that's a useful way of understanding it. Why? Because as-salihat, the al here, one of the things to pay attention to in the Quran. The al, actually the ulama of tafsir differed. Some argued that this al is categorical. Who do righteous deeds. That there is a way of righteousness. The way of righteousness. So they do righteous deeds, meaning their actions are all characterized by the characteristics of righteousness. And who do righteous deeds, that their actions are righteous. They only do righteous deeds. Because the nature of purity is that you can't have pure water, but only slightly. Well, there's only some impurities in it. Right? Something can either be pure or not pure. Right? So, وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, right? That they're and who do righteous deeds, meaning the nature of their actions is righteous. Because righteousness, righteous conduct is a commitment. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا رَبُّنَا اللَّهُ ثُمَّ اسْتَقَامُوا. Those who affirm our Lord is Allah, and then they are upright. The other possibility of عَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, and they do the righteous deeds. It's not categorical like the first time, but it's the as-salihat here, that it is do all righteous deeds. So that there is no righteous deed except that they strive to do it. And the meanings are related. One is that their actions are characterized by righteousness. The other is that they do all righteous deeds. That they seek out the opportunities to do what is salih, what is good. But there, Imam Fakhruddin al-Razi, in his tafsir, points out that this tells you about the nature of human loss. Because as much as you do of the good, you could have done more. And even if you exhaust yourself in doing the good, you could have done it better. Because the nature of human loss when it comes to actions is not just quantitative, that you could have done more, but it's also qualitative, that you could have done it better. You could have done it with more sincerity. You could have had truer concern in it. You could have been more conscious of Allah therein. You could have been more grateful to Allah in the action. Which is why, whenever we do whenever we do anything of the good, one of the adab in the sunnah is that we are grateful to Allah for it, but we also seek forgiveness. The most obvious thing after the prayer. What's the first sunnah after the prayer? With istighfar. What bad deed were you doing that you sought forgiveness for? Most of us don't commit sins in the prayer. Inshallah. Right? But why do we seek forgiveness? Because however well you prayed, Allah deserves better. It means it's شعور بالتقصير بواجب الشكر. That you fell short of the gratitude befitting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the same thing when you go to the toilet. Although some people probably need to seek forgiveness when they use the toilet because they spend so long in there that they wrong other people who are trying to get into use the washroom. Okay? And they're probably doing stuff in the washroom that they shouldn't. But most people, you don't commit a sin when you go to the toilet. But when you come out of the toilet, what do you say? غفرانك. Your complete forgiveness, O Lord. Why? Because Allah blessed you with nourishment, with food and drink. And there's a debt of gratitude owed to Allah for it. And whatever you did with the food, with that fuel, you fell short. Right? But Allah is merciful. He's given us the ways of mitigating loss. Two of the keys to that is to have gratitude with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and secondly, to seek forgiveness. To seek forgiveness. Because the seeking of forgiveness is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not that it's not you saying sorry to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. asking Allah's forgiveness, okay, the ghafr is a covering. You ask Allah to cover over your sins and your shortcomings. Okay. In the Arabic language, the mighfar, the protection, is the word for a shield, because it protects you from harm. But the mighfar, a shield, not only protects you from harm, what else does it do? It preserves good for you, right? Protects you from being harmed, but it preserves good for you. But it also beautifies you. You have your coat of arms, the shield. You people in all cultures that decorate their shield, right? Because this is what beautifies you. Or you have an armor on, it shields you. Why do we beautify our homes? Really, what matters is that it's comfortable inside. That the walls of the house protect you from the elements to have a functional purpose. But it also is part of your beautification. Imam al-Ghazali defines maghfirah, the state of forgiveness, as in an amazing way in his explanation of the 99 names. That al-maghfirah satr al-qabih wa idhar al-jameel. It's for Allah to cover over all that is unbecoming of sin and shortcomings and waywardness, and for Him to manifest all that is beautiful. Just like the walls of the house, they protect you, but most of us don't just build some walls and start living inside and decorate it. We beautify it. What's the point? What's the point? And that beautification is why? Because we have a beloved, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We want to meet Him in a manner that will be pleasing to Him. And that's part of the seeking forgiveness. So this is how we strive to complete the righteous deeds. وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. To strive, to pursue the way of uprightness, to have the attitude that if there's anything of the good, we strive to pursue it and pursue it in the best possible way. And with that, to be grateful to Allah for it, and to seek forgiveness. But seeking forgiveness is not to say, oh, I'm a loser. You ask Allah to wipe away our shortcomings and to, yes, in the Quran, وَأَتْمِمْ لَنَا نُورَنَا, and complete for us our light. So that's the spirit of righteous deeds. But then, you're not the only one drowning. Others are too. And humanity's on the same boat. As many hadiths point to. That your own salvation is facilitated by others being saved. Because if a boat's drowning, people often drown other people. People drown other people. The ideal case is everyone on the boat would work together and plug the holes and prevent the boat from drowning. But at the very least, it helps that you have some people who will band together to avoid drowning, rather than dragging each other down, but that they work together to avoid that loss. Which is why وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ, and who call and counsel one another with the truth. With the truth. And the first truth is the realization that we need to have urgency about this life. That this life has a purpose and it matters. That we are here for a purpose. And we need to take that seriously. Which is the urgency of turning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The urgency of the hereafter. وَتَوَاصَوْا, and they counsel one another. They call each other with concern to the truth. And again, the ilm is either the truth, which is that which the Messenger ﷺ has come with, or with all that is true. Right? In that concern, you want all good for all people. وَتَوَاصَوْا, and this is repeated. But you could, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just said, وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَالصَّبْرِ. And who call and counsel one another with truth and patience. But another of the things to pay attention to in the Qur'an is why is something repeated and there's no repetition in the Qur'an. Okay, many scholars wrote books on sirr al-tikrar fil Qur'an. Why are things repeated in the Qur'an? Because there's no repetition in the literal sense that repeated, you could have taken that one out. No. It's from the marvel of the Qur'an. The scholars, the Qur'an is inimitable. What's the least of the Qur'an that's inimitable? That's mu'jiz. Some said a few verses. Others said one verse. And some said, well, not necessarily any verse. Because from the Qur'an is the verse, ثُمَّ نَظَرَ, then he looked. How is this inimitable? And the ulama explained it that not just one verse, every single word in the Qur'an is inimitable if you consider the context. And they said it's an open challenge. There's no word that you can take out from the Qur'an and replace it with anything else that conveys this as powerful a meaning or even close. It's this perfect whole that any one letter you could not take out and do without it, without losing something of the meaning and guidance, if understood properly. And you could not replace it by any other word. It's amazing. It says, it repeats, وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا, and who call and counsel one another to patience. And of the many reasons this is repeated, one is emphasis, but also pointing to, as Imam al-Razi and al-Alusi say, in that it is not easy to remember what is right. وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ, counsel one another to the truth. Say, well, from the truth is patience. From the truths of life is that you got to be patient. It's one of the things you instill in your kids: be patient. Right? You can't. As much as you like the burger, you have to eat it a bite at a time. Be patient. Right? It's one of those things that never worked as a child. Could you stuff the whole burger into your mouth at once? Never worked. Right? You got to be patient in life. But it's repeated. Why? Because we are not able to uphold the truth, to do the right thing, to make the right choices, except not only by being patient with oneself, but also we have to remind each other of steadfastness. وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. And much can be said about the second half of Surat al Asr, but one of the meanings in it is that you cannot save yourself from the reality of loss, that is the reality of the human being, unless and until you come together with other believers of shared concern. Because even if you say, yes, this life is urgent, I gotta get serious about it. I'm going to work at perfecting my faith. I'm going to work at doing righteous deeds. Unless and until you come together with other believers of common concern for faith and righteousness, who are committed to uphold that, unless you have communities of concern, you will be in degrees of loss. And you will be in degrees of loss. But also understood from that is that if they come together in believers who are serious about their ultimate good, if they have to come together to remind each other, but what do they remind each other with? Bilhaq, with the truth. So it entails that a healthy community of faith, what does it require? Underlying it, it requires knowledge of what has come from the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The health, not just of a believer, but of a community of believers, is grounded on being connected with the truth, which is ma ja'a bihi Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that's critical. A healthy community is not one that is building bigger and more beautiful mosques. A healthy community is not one that builds Islamic schools. A healthy community is not one that sets up social services. A healthy community is not one that starts offering marriage counseling. To be honest, 70% of marriage cases, you could just send them to a regular good counselor and they'd give culturally sensitive counseling too. You get some value added when there's something directly has spiritual aspects and so on, but that's not the health of a community. The health of the community is its connection to the guidance of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam has come. There has to be knowledge being imparted in healthy communities of concern. And we call one another to be steadfast. How? There's many aspects to that. But from that is by upholding the sunnahs of brotherhood, of fraternity. Right? And there are numerous sunnahs. Imam Abu Abdul Rahman al-Sulami has an amazing work called Adab al-Suhbah. And there are the core sunnahs. Ibn Hajar al-Haytami summarized these. The core sunnahs of the Prophet ﷺ with respect to companionship are 60. These are just the core sunnahs. There's many derivative sunnahs. But this is a key aspect. But underlying it is one meaning. That you have to be close with other people of common concern. And that's very critical, particularly in the times we're in. And the Prophet ﷺ said, Al-jama'atu rahma wal-furqatu adab. That community is mercy. And separation is torment. And this is an amazing hadith from Jami' al-Kalim, from the encompassing speech of the Prophet ﷺ, because it applies at the level of our beliefs. That we adhere to the beliefs of the community of the believers. That's why we say Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, the mainstream Muslim community. We don't have, well, I have my special beliefs. No, and how that's an amazing gift. Right? The Ummah of the Messenger ﷺ, 1400 years later, we believe the same things. It's amazing. It's an amazing miracle from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? But Jama'ah also refers to any group of people who come together with common concern. Right? Community is mercy. And wal-furqa, and separation, separating oneself from community, is torment. And this is the meaning the Prophet ﷺ emphasized again and again and again. Alaykum bil jama'ah, the hadith in Tirmidhi. Hold fast to community. Wa iyyakum wal furqa, and beware of remaining alone, of separating yourself. Those people there, whatever they are, be with the believers. فَإِنَّ الشَّيْطَانَ قَرِيبٌ مِنَ الْوَاحِدِ, for the devil is close to the one alone. وَهُوَ مِنَ الْإِثْنَيْنِ أَبْعَدُ, and he is distant, more distant even from two. مَنْ أَرَادَ بُحْبُوحَةَ الْجَنَّةِ فَلْيَلْزَمِ الْجَمَاعَةِ, whoever seeks the vast expanses of paradise or the sweet breezes of paradise. Let them hold fast to community. So this is of just a few of the messages of Surat al Asr. That we have, that we strive to have a sense of urgency regarding our lives. And to see that there is a way to succeed in this life. And we'll close with the words of one of the great Muslim poets of the 20th century, Shaykh Faraz Rabbani, who said, صاحي فاغنم المعاشا كم ميت أتاه عاشا حاشا أن يخيب حاشا من أتى بصدق نية. صاحي, which is abbreviated from sahibi, so the Arabs use this in poetry especially, that my dear companion, my dear friend, فاغنم المعاشا, make the most of your life. كم ميت أتاه عاشا, how many a dead person, how many a dead man walking did Allah grant true life? حاشا أن يخيب حاشا, never ever will he let down, ever. من أتى بصدق نية, anyone who comes with a true and honest intention. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be of the people of success, of those who appreciate that amazing moment of light in history that Allah blessed us with, which is those moments of the Messenger's life. And we can bless our lives and avoid loss by striving to realize our faith, committing to the way of righteousness, and striving to use every opportunity to rush towards righteous deeds, to be of those who come together in communities of concern, grounded in truth and guidance and learning, who remind one another, who have the bonds of brotherhood and sisterhood, of fraternity, to uphold that beauty that Allah has blessed us with. That is what the Messenger ﷺ came with. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us truly appreciative of those blessings, so that we can say, as our beloved Messenger ﷺ said, أَفَلَا أَكُونُ عَبْدًا شَكُورًا, should I not be a servant who is truly grateful? May Allah realize us and our families in that. وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Thank you for listening to the Qur'an Tafsir, Understanding the Word of Allah. Help Seekers Hub give light to millions around the world by becoming a monthly donor at seekershub.org/donate. Your donations are tax deductible in the US and Canada.